fourth, fifth try. Thank you, Nathan. My name is Westra, and Bob was my president for 4 years. I'm gonna look at the back wall because I can't look at you guys. He was one of those guys that you always stand behind. You knew he was a target and he was gonna take one for you. He was always the guy that gave his best and made sure you were part of the best that he was giving. I'm reminded by what is behind me that Bob now knows and is part of the cross that's behind me. But each one of us is like a plank that's on that wall. Each one of us has a story. We build that story behind Bob and what we see back here. Some of us have more nails in each other than we have a plank of wood. But Bob was always one of those guys that brought to the greater community a good and a goodness. And I need to thank him for that. Last night at our monthly board meeting, we did thank him. And we gave honor to Bob. And I let all of you know that the honor is due him out of respect and gratitude. Because Bob was such an influence in our lives, in our community, the horse statues wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Bob Sutton. The monument with the 5 names, one name left off, is there because Bob created it and Kiki created the creation. So you have a joint couple that created something that we can all share. So last night at our board meeting, we did a tribute to Bob where we dedicated colors. And when you dedicate colors, you dedicate the flag of the United States and where it proudly stands. And we are going to be putting a plaque by the colors that so are proudly displayed at La Cresta's entrance at the monument. That the plaque will read as follows. Because each one of these plaques behind me on this wall is a story. And we want to convey that story of the horse rider and of Bob's legacy. So the plaque will read as follows. We dedicate this flagpole to the memory of Mr. Robert Bob Sutton, a man who first served his country in the Air Force with honor and dignity, then later in life served his community with the same. Bob's vision and leadership is shown here at the horse and rider statues alongside the flag of the United States of America. He loved, quote, cutting through the bureaucracy, challenges he faced through his lifetime. You can see the strength of the wind pushing the tail of the bridle hair of the horses forcefully. One can understand why the gentleman rider lost his hat. The patience of the female rider and the love and respect of Sitka, the border collie, assisting the return of the hat. These qualities were all part of Mr. Robert Sutton, who completed his service in God and country. This community thanks him.
Very nice, Cal. Karen, thanks for letting me speak today about our friend. Thanks for not making me follow Fletcher, who is a show stealer. You'll see him at 91. He's a very talented speaker. So Bob Sutton. The reason we know Bob is because we live in La Cresta where Bob and Karen built their beautiful home. When we moved there 15 years ago, we decided we wanted to get to know the community. We did so by getting involved in the POA and joining the riding club, both of which Karen and Bob were very active. So we go to these events, and there be the big, strong, handsome Bob Sutton, always laughing, always smiling, had a group of buddies that he hung out with while the girls were hanging out or riding or whatever. And I said, I want to be a part of that group. Well, Bob wasn't that easy enough to crack. And I found that you had to Christ with him. So I tried unsuccessfully, gradually opening up that nut a little bit. Then we had, Chris and I had an opportunity to go to Hawaii with 4 other couples, all of them in this room. And by some strange quirk of fate, we were chosen to roommate with Bob and Karen in a condo that Dino and Kat let us stay in. Thank you. I think you're out there. I don't know where Dino is. Anyway, I said, hey, this is my chance. I'm going to get to know Bob. I'm going to be his roommate for a week. I'm going to crack that nut. Then I found out that he was actively negotiating with the other couples to replace me. He was cool with having Chris, but he was trying to replace me. That's when I knew I had it. That's when I knew he would like me. I wish Dino was here, because Dino had a similar relationship, what I'm about to say. When Bob and I would see each other socially, it was, how you doing, you worthless SOB? Felt a lot better than you worthless bastard. It was so bad that we would often say, if you ever came up to me and just said, hey, how's it going? We'd say, is everything all right? Are you mad at me or something? So that's just how we talk to each other. One time at a memorial for another neighbor in La Cresta, Dennis Fabozzi, a few years ago, it was pretty crowded event, a lot of people there, and the cars were lined up and down the street, and the late arrivals had to walk quite a ways to get to the service. I get there, I see Bob, I said, hey Bob, sorry you had to walk so far, shouldn't be a problem when you kick the bucket. And he came back with some comment about, well Rick, when you finally kick the bucket, we could have your reception at a Costco on Saturday, and parking would not be a problem. Of course, I said something about it, having his memorial service in a phone booth. I don't know, we went round and round. So finally, a lady over here, one of our other neighbors, said, hey boys, that's enough. Now just stop, you guys are awful. So we turned it down finally. I mean, we're at a memorial services after all, right? So anyway, that was the way Bob and I communicated, and it was fun. I'm gonna miss it. Bob served on the La Cresta POA board for 6 years, 4 of which as president. It was a pleasure. Like I said, we were involved in the POA, so Chris and I always attended the meetings, and then I've served on the board off and on over the years. But it was truly a pleasure to watch Bob work, navigate those waters between the board and the members. The members were constantly accusing board members of doing this or that, and Bob handled it beautifully. And I don't mean that he was necessarily a diplomat. In fact, what Pastor Scott said about sarcasm, that could be an understatement. He handled it artfully. He knew how to communicate. He knew how to be strong when he needed to be strong. He knew when to apologize. He knew when to back down. He was a talented communicator, leader, manager. We all watched as he started to lose his ability to walk. This has been going on for probably a decade. And I asked him one time what the problem was, and he explained it, and I don't remember the details exactly, but something about some medicine or something he was given that caused him to not be able to lift his toes. He could push down, but he couldn't lift. And so he kind of had a funny walk. And we watched as his walk progressed worse and worse, to using a cane or walking stick, as he called it. And I think he even had a walker for a while and a wheelchair once in a while, right? So I asked him what happened. He said, well, this doctor gave me medicine and my calves wouldn't work anymore. And he says, that's the way it is. Just got to deal with it. No big deal. He didn't complain. And that was Bob. He never complained. He always made the best of everything, and he always took things on straight on. He was very proud of his service in the Patriot Guard, and you're about to see this today, where the motorcycles escort the remains of fallen veterans to their gravesite. Bob was proud of doing that, but because of his leg condition, he couldn't shift his motorcycle anymore because you have to stick your toes under the shifter and lift. That was a function his legs could no longer do. he knew that I had a shop with a welder, and he said, Rick, you think maybe me and you could figure out a way to make a pedal that I can shift by pushing down with my heel versus having to lift with my toes? And I said, yeah, let's try it. So he ordered the parts, and then I had him welded up, a special pedal, one of a kind. He and I installed it together on his bike, and off he went. Back to his patriot guard duties. That was Bob. You got a problem? You face it head on. Don't make a big deal out of it. Deal with it. Find a solution. That was Bob. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for what you did for me, our family, and our community. I'll never forget you.
This is a tough day. Bob was a very dear friend. A super American and patriot. We had many memorable trips and events with he and Karen as our friends. He was a great LCPOA board member and a caring neighbor. We used to tease each other a lot about our heritage. Turns out that many generations ago we're from England. And so one time we were on a trip and I'm driving and Bob's always working on his phone. And I said, let's look up the origin of our names. Because people from England, your name is your occupation typically. So we look up, turns out that Sutton worked for the Queen as a housekeeping manager. And so it turns out that we were enthralled by the Queen to be the potty pot dumpers. So for years, Bob and I would go back and forth and tease each other about our different occupations. So there always would joke about the pecking order of our heritage, the fun times cooking dinner and playing catchphrase. He and Karen were regularly special to get together with us. He will truly be missed. Rest in peace, Bobby. Thank you.
I started using this about 3 or 4 years ago. Bob Sutton gave it a name. And its name is Sissy Stick. Well, good morning to all of you. My name's Fletcher Satterwhite. Bob Sutton and I have friends for the past about 12 years. We had a common interest between us in that Bob was an Air Force jet pilot, and I, on the other hand, was a Navy jet pilot. In addition to this affinity, and due to his recognition as a national and global aviation systems and safety authority, our friendship also involved the analysis of aviation accidents and the examining of factors that were what we refer to as causal. His astute and careful study of all things aviation were indeed rare, and I learned a great deal from him. We had a running discussion, and we generally involved friendly needling as to whether the Air Force pilots or the Navy pilots, one was better than the other. And the final conclusion was we were about the same. However, I was quick to remind him that learning to land on an aircraft carrier was indeed a different skill set. Many of you may not know that Bob was a certified air traffic controller, licensed private pilot, and he held a commercial certificate as well. Those were not just minor accomplishments. I recall the lyrics of a song that I heard a long time ago that said that the greatest thing you will ever experience is to love and be loved in return. Well, that's Bob's personification. No doubt about it that he loved his beautiful wife, Karen. No doubt about it that he loved his family. No doubt about it that he loved his friends, and nobody can say that he did not love life. In fact, for those of you who knew him, you could probably testify to Bob's energy and love in large heaps. He was truly one of a kind. From time to time, I have heard the expression of someone who's an ex-fighter pilot. And I contend that there are no ex-fighter pilots. Once a young man straps himself into a jet aircraft and climbs into the heavens, it is seared into his psyche forever. For at some point, he will hang up his flight suit, which eventually we all do, and in the autumn of his years, his eyes will probably be dim, and he might be stooped a little with age. But ask him about his life, and his eyes will flash, and his back will straighten, and his hands will demonstrate the aerial maneuvers and memories that every conversation begins with, "There I was." Again, he's a young man. Bob, it's now time to say goodbye. May you forever rest in peace forever and ever.